Okay, everybody, time for another question of the day for Wednesday, August 4. This question's from a new member of our Facebook group, Britta C. She's asking, she says, I just moved everything to CNS funds because of advice seen in this group and seeing a history of higher gains in the long run. I'm at least 10 years from retirement. Would it make sense to start moving funds to G as I get closer to retirement? Okay, so this is actually a very commonly asked question in the group. More so when people get within about 5 years of retirement, they start thinking they need to become more conservative. And a lot of this has to do with the cookie cutter advice that gets propagated because, which is the same mentality that or philosophy that the TSP life cycle funds follow. Um, you know, the TSP life cycle funds, all they do is invest in the GFCS and I funds automatically, and it basically invests more heavily toward the stock funds at start, and then as your career progresses, it'll gradually shift money away from the stock funds and toward the bond funds or the G and F funds. Problem is, um, we don't really know if I mean, just because you're close to retirement doesn't necessarily mean that your account itself is ready for your retirement. Everybody has their own lifestyle needs. Everybody's had their own amount of effort they've put into contributing to their TSP accounts, and everybody has different ways that they've invested within TSP after the money's already in there. So keep all this in mind. Also, I want to keep in mind that somebody with, let's just say, a $500,000 TSP account balance might have one particular lifestyle, maybe even have the same marital status and all that. Might have a spouse and a couple of kids or something, or at least maybe just a spouse, we'll just say, and might have a certain lifestyle where they need to be able to live off of a certain amount of money. And you can have somebody with the same income level and same account balance when they retire and also be married, but maybe a completely different lifestyle. Might be more frugal or something. Where two people with $500,000 account balances and same marital statuses, they're going to have two different needs on whether that 500,000 is sufficient for their needs or maybe even if it's sufficient for their needs, but they want to be able to get the money to grow continually even after they're retired and withdrawing. Whereas some just want to go ahead and have that money last 20, 25 years and then call it good and don't really care if it runs out or whatever. There's nobody to inherit it or don't want to. Anyway, there's a whole lot of ways that you can play that. More or less, though, anytime I get questions about what is a sufficient TSP account balance or when should I start scaling back my risk level for retirement, I say take your personal need first and then figure out if your TSP account balance is already sufficient enough to meet that need. I say only, this is my own opinion, but I don't think you should scale back your risk and go more conservative until you've established for sure that your account balance is sufficient to meet your needs. So how do you know if it's sufficient for your needs? All right, so what you want to do here is take your TSP account balance and divide it by 240 and also by 300, and you're going to get a range here. And I provided some numbers here. Some roundabout balances here and what these amount to. The 4% rate is divided by 300. That represents you're basically taking monthly payments out for 25 years. And 25 year, one out of every 25, that's 4%. And the right column, you have a 5% rate, which is basically the 20-year plan, and that's the amount you get when you divide your balance by 240. So if you're in an interest-free environment, whatever, where you're not gaining money or losing money from share prices, whatever share price changes, your money will last you for 20 to 25 years, if you withdraw within this particular range that you see here, with that same kind of account balance. Um, Again, everybody has their own needs. Some people want to have their account balance continue to grow even as they're withdrawing from it. That is possible to do. In fact, if you're withdrawing at the 4% rate, and your account balance is growing at a 7 to 8% rate, then you're going to continue to see your account balance grow even while you're making withdrawals from it. Okay, so that's something I might want to consider, keep in mind for yourself. Um, Generally, though, um, this is the best cookie cutter advice I can give you on this would be compare your personal need per month to what you see here on this chart. And if you're, yeah, and then if your need is above what the range is for your particular account balance, then stay more heavily invested in the stock funds. I usually say 100% as much as you can in CNS funds particularly. And if your monthly need is inside that range, then you can scale back some risk. I would say don't go any lower than 80% in the CNS funds, maybe 20% in bonds at most. And finally, if your personal need is below that amount, that range, below that 4% range, at that point, you can decide you can be a little more. You can be more conservative. I still recommend doing about at least 60% of your money in CNS funds, and no more than 40% in the bond funds. Okay, a lot of people might have this mentality, put it all into G. Okay, if you're convinced that you don't need to have your TSP money any longer than 20 years, and what you have there is sufficient. And you don't, you're pretty certain you're not going to have medical issues. This is a hint, hint. At some point in time, you might later point in time in life have medical costs. Maybe you end up getting put in an adult care facility because you're not capable of taking care of yourself, and those are expensive. It's very expensive to adult care providers charge a very large amount of money, so it doesn't take much for this kind of money to get wiped out pretty fast if you end up in an adult care facility for an extended amount of time, and maybe Medicare or whatever doesn't cover it sufficiently. So this is stuff you might want to keep in mind. And so that's why I usually say, don't put all your money in the G fund at any point in time. My opinion is G fund is meant to supplement the stock funds, not to replace them. Okay, you can go totally safe, but you're not going to get any growth out of it, and sooner or later your money will run out. If you stay like that for a long time. Okay, and take it from me, I've made mistakes myself where I made some dumb decisions with my own investments and wiped myself out in the past. So, and you don't want to end up getting yourself down to that point where the money's starting to get down down low enough to where you can't get sufficient dollar amount growth out of your account as you're going to need. Because I made that exact mistake myself, and it wasn't retirement money, but overall, it's eventually, if like say a 5% growth rate with $100,000 versus a 5% growth rate with a $500,000 account, it's a lot different as in terms of how many dollars get added to your account. So $500,000 account balance and 5%, you're talking about $25,000. I think, or no, yeah, $25,000 getting added to the account balance just from that 5% growth. Do that 5% with a $100,000 balance, and you're only getting $5,000. So it's not much to work with. And if you're burning more than $5,000 a year, or whatnot, or even more than $25,000 with the $500,000 balance, eventually your balance is going to get small enough to where that 5% growth is going to be progressively smaller and smaller and smaller, because you just don't have enough money to keep sustaining yourself. And you want to be able to ideally have the money continue to grow and increase in value, because even with the same percent growth rate, it'll increase the dollar amount that it gets added to your account as well. And then the more dollars you get added to your account, the larger this 4% to 5% range ends up at. So it's kind of a built-in cola adjustment thing, as I would put it. Where if you're set up and you're investing smartly, and so where your account keeps growing every year, you can give yourself little raises, pay raises, whatever, from your retirement account, and still be 20 years out from running out of money every single year. All right, so um, thank you for the question. Again, this is an extremely common one we get in there. Not the most common in the world, but it's I would say at least weekly, it seems. We get asked a similar question to this. All right. Again, any questions? Don't hesitate to ask them either in the group or here in the comment section. Thanks.